Okay, welcome to our next phase of the Own It for Good program. We're going to now move into mind management, and today's just going to be sort of an introduction and sort of pondering the question, okay, now what do we do? And we're going to look to the movie Groundhog Day, um, which is very easy to identify with, of feeling like we are living the same day over and over again, and how do we get out of that? The interesting thing about the movie Groundhog Day, while on the surface it's kind of presents itself as a comedy, there's a lot of really interesting spiritual and life lessons and questions that are being asked and also even answered as we watch Bill Murray's character, the news anchor, go through this um, repeating day. And at first, there's sort of a sense of an excitement and a hedonism that he goes through on his journey. Then he kind of moves into this hopeless phase of that we have represented here, that, there's nothing he can do about it. And then he moves on to, well, if there's nothing I can do about it, and he even tries to commit suicide, for some fairly serious scenes in the movie. He moves into, well, if this is what we're going to have, then maybe I can make the most out of it, enjoy it. And then he starts to look for some really good, genuine things that he wants, moving to really caring about people, and moves out of himself and more into others. And then also in that process, finds himself, which is really interesting, and not just himself, but true joy and joy in living the life. Even if it is the same day over, he's going to be in a place of love and positivity in his new world. So, why does this resonate so much? And you hear it all the time with people that are struggling with compulsive behaviors or in bad habits of overdoing things. Well, what we say we want and what we do really want is sanity. And the definition that we have here of sane is to be of sound mind, rational, able to anticipate and appraise and affect one's actions, health in our bodies. But then we have this internal conflict of what we're actually doing, which feels the opposite of sane. It feels insane. And an oft quoted um, and often attributed to maybe Albert Einstein, Benjamin Franklin, or another number of other people, is that insanity may be defined as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Boy, as overdrinkers, can't we identify with that? The internal war of wanting to be healthy in all areas. And many of us, we wake up in the morning and we eat healthy breakfasts, we exercise, we work very effectively in our jobs, we parent well, we have great relationships. And then when it comes to quote unquote wine o'clock, or even if over drinking is not your thing, you know, we engage in these activities that go against our own will, and undo a lot of the healthy behaviors that we have. And then this leads to feelings of shame, and then a feeling of sort of stuckness or hopelessness or powerlessness, which, again, with this Groundhog Day, beautifully sort of walks us through these stages of those feelings. But there is good news. There's hope. This hope is that we have a soul and a heart and a mind and a spirit, that we have learned about, that we can separate out from our biology and our chemistry of our physical bodies. And we can learn to manage and therefore change our behaviors from a genuine place of wanting versus what I like to say, we should all over ourselves. We shoulding all over ourselves. Um, so this is what we're going to tackle next, and this is what means. We're going to take a look at how we can do this. But I'm going to lay some expectations here. This really is going to take some work and investment of time if you really want to get to the next level and really want to do this from that place of genuine wanting, that internal change. We all know that we can modify our behavior, but that only lasts for a short time. Willpower can only get us so far. Um, and then, if we haven't done the internal work, behavior modification, while it might be satisfying as far as checking off a box, it doesn't bring that genuine joy or that joie de vivre, that can really change a life and change, therefore, your community and those around you. We talked about the term dry drunk earlier in the program. And, that's what you don't want to be. And that's if you just stop at behavior modification and you're just changing things on the surface, or as we even talked about in the scriptural terms, if you're just looking at your fruit and not the root, then you're not going to have lasting change. So this is going to take some time, and you're going to have to be willing to go deep. So we're going to learn in the coming days from some teachers and some different methodologies. And we're each wired and created differently. So I want you to just have an open mind and consider what you're going to learn from these teachers and these methodologies of mind management. And you don't have to do all of them. You can try all of them, but if there's something that resonates more with you, then go with that. That's why we're going to explore some different techniques, because again, we are different, and we need those options, and we need to know. And maybe none of these options will be for you, but it might spark some interest to go looking for another teacher that does resonate with you. So we have, just to sort of recap where we are, we started off with sort of the Own It acronym, and we're going to review that. And we learned a little bit, some of the questions to ask to identify those deep disconnects within ourselves that we haven't paid attention to, and some self-care. And then the real effects of what we are choosing to consume and the physical effects that's having in our bodies, in our brains. And hopefully all of these things have laid a strong foundation of lasting motivation to want to do the deeper work, to get long-term and lasting change so that we can own it for good. Before we move into the different teachers and teachings and concepts of mind management, I thought it would be a good time, midway through. And by the way, congratulations for all the work that you've done so far. And this is not an easy thing to do, to step up to the plate and look in the mirror and do a program like this. Um, and but once we have additional knowledge and we begin to learn, we also have increased responsibility to ourselves and to those around us and in the world. So I have a quote here, and it's not original to the movie, but it was in the movie. What you believe to be true, is it true? Or do you just believe that it's true because you were taught that it's true and you never looked any further? And what even is truth? So this is sort of a, great philosophical question. And a lot of us just live on autopilot, and we never really consider these types of questions. A lot of time, and we learned that in the beginning, that there's a lot of our beliefs and our commitments that we have just assumed or put on like a comfortable jacket because it was maybe a family jacket. um, and, it's not necessarily yours to wear, but it's comfortable. It's worn. A lot of times change is unknown and it's uncomfortable. And as humans, we're not wired that way. We are wired to want to stay the same. But true growth and what God calls us to be, and live out the full potential He has for our lives, for His purposes, for His good, and for the good of others. So, um, with the Own It acronym, that's part of why I have, for good added onto it. So that can mean a few things. For good, we often use that as like, for good, it's done, it's final, it's done. Um, that sort of goes to our wanting to make long-term lasting change. And even when you make one change, are there multiple changes? Life is a continuous journey of growth, and we always want to keep our eyes on that journey and that growth trajectory. Um, and we want to do it, for good forever. We want to be on that journey. So it's never fully done, but we can commit to being on that journey for good. Um, for the long term. And then also, it has a few layers of meaning. Um, it's for your own personal good. God calls us to be healthy stewards of our bodies, minds, lives. He calls us to be good stewards of our relationships, our relationship primarily with Him, and then outwardly in the world with our family, with our communities, and for the world. And not to discount a life well lived and the impact that it can have in the immediate and for generations to come. So let's revisit our Own It. And what we're going to do today is just some homework and internal reflection and journal prompts to just maybe go back and look at what you originally wrote at the beginning of this program. And now that you have learned a little bit more and journaled a little bit more, let's maybe refine, if you want to sort of fine tune what you've already committed to, and also to recommit. And this is something that you should do periodically, as well as maybe even daily. This is an acronym that you can have on your journal page every day just to remind you. And of course, Own It on the surface speaks for itself. In taking personal responsibility for one's life. But the O standing for outcome. Okay, now that you understand some of these disconnects within yourself, you understand the physical implications of this insane compulsive behavior that we're engaging in. And now that you also know that there's hope and that we really can change, and it can be from a place of genuine wanting. How does that make you feel? Does that change your original outcome? Maybe at the beginning it was just to not engage in this behavior. It was just behavior modification for a certain number of days. Um, has that, do you need to redefine that? Does it have further implications of maybe something big that's been on your heart, a dream that you've had that you just felt you could never do, and you weren't good enough, and maybe you have now see yourself in a new light with this new possibility. Recommit, redefine, expand, refine your why. Why are you doing this? Are you more motivated now? Has your whys expanded? Maybe beyond just wanting to have a little more energy during the day. And it's fine if it hasn't. This is very personal. I'm throwing out different examples, and it's fine if your Own It doesn't change. Let me just say that here as well. But this is a good time. You have enough days and time under your belt and some learning to revisit. And then, of course, now what? This is a question we should always keep in front of us. It's a daily, tool that we can use multiple times throughout the day just to check in with ourselves. How are we feeling? If you're getting triggered, if you're experiencing triggers, why? Now, what are you going to do about it? Should you be doing some of your self care routine, taking a break, meditating for a few minutes, breathing, taking a nap, going outside for a walk, connecting with a trusted friend that you can vent to, journaling, all of these self care things. We should always be keeping that in front of us. But then the larger, like, again, now what? Always be looking for something new to learn, another level to go to, observing yourself, being very mindful. So, now what keeps us in that sort of mindful state of curiosity? And then also looking to the next two items, which is now what needs a plan? We need to identify what we're going to do next. Is it self-care? Is it, something creative? Is it to, maybe we've been procrastinating and we need to get to work, those types of things. And then, of course, the taking action. Once you identify the plan, then you need to act on it, whatever that looks like. If it's resting for a few moments, or making a list of things you need to get done and doing the next thing on the list. And then for good, you should have a daily good thing that you're wanting to contribute to the world. Do you want to have a good conversation with a friend, to connect with somebody, make it further on a work project, passion project, family commitment? What does this look like in the bigger picture of for good? This gives our life, keeps us constantly looking for the purpose and meaning in our lives, which at the core of it, and even as we learn through Groundhog Day, that this is what Phil learns through his adventures of living the day over and over again, and how he finally gets to the next day, is that he chooses for the good. He doesn't, it stops being all about him and indulging his hedonistic wants and desires, but he starts to genuinely care about people and see that the impact that can also have on him internally, and the joy that it can bring. And the true transformation, when it finally clicks and the clock turns to 6:01 and he finally gets to go to tomorrow. And that's what we're all here for. We all want to get to our tomorrow for good, and we want to get off of the Groundhog Day. So, thanks for sticking with me this long. I know I'm a little wordy today, but I really am just so proud of all the work you've done, and just is a good time to sort of regather ourselves, our motivations, our whys, our outcomes, our plans, and get ready for the next phase of the journey into the mind, and further into our heart, and how do we connect those two things to make permanent, lasting, genuine, authentic change from a place of wanting something different, and not, we don't want to fight with our desires anymore. We want to not do the thing that has kept us feeling insane anymore. Um, all right, we're going to go to our soul meditation next. Thanks, and have a great day.